Keep your cat indoors, they're going to be bored, fat and lazy. But let your cat outside and they're going to be hit on the road or riddled with disease within a week. But what's the truth? And should you keep your cat indoors all the time or let them outdoors as well?
Welcome to the Call the Vet Show, the podcast that helps keep your furry family as healthy as possible so they can live the full and happy life they deserve. And here's your host, veterinarian Dr. Alex Avery.
Welcome to another episode of the Call the Vet Show. If we've not met before, then I'm veterinarian Dr. Alex, and on this podcast, I hope to give you the information that you need to help you look after your pet to the best of your ability so that they can live the full and happy life that they deserve. Now, if that sounds like something that you're interested in, and hopefully it is, make sure you hit that subscribe button on your podcasting app so that you don't miss out on any of my future questions. You can also get your question answered simply by heading over to callthevet.org and recording it there. And so let's jump into today's question, which was sent in by Martin of the Cat Lovers Facebook group, and I'll leave links to that in the show notes. And he simply asks, what is your opinion on the outdoor versus indoor cat discussion? So I'll let you know how I care for my cats in just a minute. But let's start off by looking at the benefits, the pros of letting your cat outdoors. Now, the first one here is mental stimulation. If they're outdoors, they're hunting, they're crouching, they're prowling, they're exploring their environment. And that gives them a huge amount of mental stimulation, which is really important and I think often overlooked in the welfare, the well-being, and how happy our cats can be. Also, by exploring, by climbing trees, they're getting a lot more exercise, which again is really good for their health. It's also possible that because of this exercise, because of this mental stimulation, that they're actually less stressed. They're able to exhibit and perform all of their natural behaviours, things like scratching and scent marking and hunting and that kind of thing. So those are really important inbuilt drives in behaviour that a cat will have. And if they're not able to exhibit them, then that can actually be really quite stressful. On the flip side, it may be that actually they're more stressed. This is going to depend on the number of cats that you have in your local neighbourhood, because if there's a lot of cats, they're very territorial, they're fighting for territory all the time, then that is actually going to cause them an awful lot more stress. So stress levels, maybe a pro, maybe a con, depending on where you live. Now, there are other downsides or cons to letting your cat outside rather than keeping them indoors all the time. The first and most obvious one is infectious disease and injury risk. So those are going to be much, much higher in a cat who goes outdoors. Infectious parasites are about 2.5 to 3 times more prevalent in outdoor cats compared to indoor only cats. Diseases like feline leukemia virus, FELV, or feline immunodeficiency virus, FIV, rabies, cat flu are going to be more likely in a cat who has access to the outdoors and interacts with other cats. And then the other big ones, as we've already alluded to, is cat fights. So cat fights are really common. Cats are territorial, and even if they do end up working out a sort of truce between their neighbours, there's often fights to begin with. And then the big one is trauma on the road. So I will, in my veterinary practice, see a lot of cats that do get hit on the road. That might be that they get minor injuries, but it could be that they get fractures or more serious injuries that ultimately are life-threatening or life-ending. And I certainly have a number of clients who, tell me from time to time that they've lost their cat on the road. So that is a real risk. Again, it's going to depend a little bit on the area you live in and how busy the roads are, and that kind of thing depends on whether that's going to be a serious risk for your cat. Another con of letting your cat outdoors is maybe not a con for your cat, but it's the impact on wildlife that they can have. So cats can be prolific hunters. Now, sometimes that's really good. They keep the rodent population down, but it shouldn't be underestimated the impact that cats can have on bird life, for example. They can really cause a huge reduction in the local bird population. So if your cat is a prolific hunter, you really need to be aware that can have a significant impact. And then the final big con of letting your cat outdoors is them getting lost or shut away in somebody's shed or garage and suffering as a result of that. It could be that they die because of that, or it could be that they become seriously unwell. They might lose a lot of weight and develop something called hepatic lipidosis or fatty liver, for example. So that really is a real risk. And again, it's going to depend on your neighborhood and how far your cat does wander. So with all that being said, if you do let your cat outdoors, then there are a couple of ways that you can mitigate and reduce some of these risks. So the first one is to actually just keep your cat in at night. So cats are often more active, certainly at dawn and dusk and overnight. That's where they get into the highest number of fights, where they get knocked on the road, in my experience. So keeping them in at night can really help reduce some of those risks. The other one is to have a breakaway collar with a bell on it. So that can reduce their hunting. It can help alert the wildlife to the presence of your cat. They're not the be all and end all, and certainly some cats can stalk very successfully even with a bell. There are other hunting inhibitors that you can get, big kind of rough collars that increase their visibility. So those are a couple of other things. I say a breakaway collar because we don't want a collar that could potentially cause your cat to get stuck on a branch, for example, and get hung up. So we want to make sure that if your cat does put a lot of weight through that collar, that it will come apart and your cat won't be stuck. Also, vaccinations play a huge role in reducing infectious disease. So diseases like feline leukemia virus, feline immunodeficiency virus, our cat flu viruses, making sure that your cat is up to date with their vaccinations can help keep them healthy. And also giving them regular parasite control can also help reduce their risk of carrying significant internal parasites, things like intestinal worms and fleas, for example. And then finally, just to reduce the chance of your cat getting lost and not being returned to you, is making sure that they're microchipped and that your details are all up to date on your national register. So moving on to indoor only cats, there are definite pros here, and a lot of that will relate to the cons of having your cat outdoors. So keeping your cat indoors will reduce their risk of infectious disease. If they're not mixing with lots of other cats, then the chance of them getting certain diseases is much less. It's not nothing, but it's much, much less. There's also a reduced risk of trauma. They're simply not going to be able to get hit on the road if they're not going outdoors. Of course, they could knock something off onto themselves indoors, but the chance of that seriously injuring themselves is an awful lot less. They're also less likely to fight with their housemates. They might not get on as well as you would like, but they're unlikely to get into fights where there are nasty bites and abscesses. And then if there are a lot of cats in your neighborhood, keeping your cat indoors is potentially going to reduce their stress levels because they're not going to be coming across other cats fighting for their territory. The flip side here, of course, with stress is that if your cat is not able to perform their natural behaviours, then that can definitely increase their stress levels. So things like scratching, spraying, marking, hunting, pouncing and stalking. If your cat isn't able to perform those, then their stress levels may actually be higher than were they allowed outside. And that leads us to the cons of keeping your cat indoors only. There can definitely be a reduction in that mental stimulation. They're not performing those behaviours. They're not exploring their surroundings. Their environment is really staying the same from day to day, week to week, year to year. There can be little change there, so there's less mental stimulation. As a result, they also get less physical activity, which can lead to more frustration and frustration-related behaviours that can be a problem for you as their owner. And there's also an increased level of obesity and obesity-related disease, and this shouldn't be overstated. So while they might be safer from infectious disease, obesity is a massive problem, has a huge impact on body health, and it's been shown that indoor cats are more likely to develop diseases like diabetes, which is massively obesity-driven. So it may be that they're not actually much healthier. And it's also been shown that cats who are kept indoors, they do have deficiencies in their toileting and in their feeding environment, so that they really are not getting what they need. Again, though, you can mitigate some of these deficiencies, some of these risks in keeping your cat indoors only. So you can get cat furniture so that they can climb and they can explore, and you can change that regularly. Similarly, you can provide toys, but also change those toys out. Put some away, take some new ones out, and different types of toys, different sizes, different colours. They make different noises, different actions to just provide some mental stimulation for your cat. You can even bring in things from the environment, so a load of leaves in autumn and sticks for your cat to sniff and roll in and explore, feathers from birds, that kind of thing can really help to provide them with some much needed mental stimulation. You could provide food puzzles and food games to try and stimulate some of that stalking and pouncing behaviour. And then you can build things like a catio so that your cat can actually kind of experience being outside but in a safe and enclosed environment that they can't escape from. Even just having a screen door closed with the main door open or the windows open that your cat can't escape through can help bring some of the outdoors in to provide some sights, some smells and some sounds that they might otherwise not be exposed to. And then also you could even harness train your cat so that you can actually take them outdoors. They can go exploring in the environment, but you can keep them under control at all time. They're not able to spook, get scared and do themselves an injury or run off and get lost. So a cat harness can be a really valuable addition to any indoor cat's lifestyle. Now, I've actually got an episode coming up talking all about cat collars and cat harnesses, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on that. And I'd also love to hear your thoughts. How do you keep your cat? Do they go outdoors all the time? Do you restrict their access to the outdoors to the daytime only? Or do you keep them indoors only? I'd love to hear your thoughts. As for me, well, I let my cats outdoors. They aren't restricted. They have access to the outdoors all the time. I live in a quiet neighbourhood. They haven't yet, hopefully this stays the same, but they haven't yet got into any fights and the roads are very, very quiet. So only overnight there's next to no traffic at all. So while I admit there are some risks, I think the benefits of letting them outdoors outweigh the benefits of keeping them indoors all the time. But what's right for me is definitely not necessarily right for you. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. And how you look after your cat is just one thing to think about when it comes to optimizing their health and keeping them as healthy as possible. And I talk about 5 other really important considerations for every cat owner in my free guide, Pet Health Essentials. So you can download that today. I'll leave a link in the show notes and it will run you through the ways that you can prevent some of the most common illnesses and diseases that I see every day as a veterinarian. But really, that's it from me for this podcast episode. Make sure you're subscribed. And until next time, I'm Dr. Alex. This is the Call the Vet Show. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Call the Vet. For full show notes and any links mentioned in today's show, head over to callthevet.org, where you can also submit your question to be featured on an upcoming episode. We'll see you next time.